Okay, well, welcome everybody to the talk that is competing with the DARPA AICC Challenge talk. First, I'll just say that if I was on the whatever judging committee or stuff for that, that's a super cool thing. If you are not run out of here or something like that to go to that talk, I don't mind. But this is all about how we can make academic institutions like universities do things that are better, that are more relevant, that are more real. And this is an effort that a bunch of folks at the Linux Foundation and a bunch of academics have participated in to try to make what we teach in the classroom more relevant and useful to students. So in practice, industry is out there, and they're out there like building the buildings. We're building, since we're at a CNCF event, we're building the infrastructure that's used to power the cloud. And from the OpenSSF side, we're doing the things that make things like the software supply chain and the rest of the software infrastructure we use much more secure and stable and reliable. That's really what industry and open source are focused on. And there's this perception that academia is teaching things that are up in the clouds, that are a little disconnected from reality. And I hear stories sometimes of, oh yeah, my introductory computer science class was in Ada, or I learned about network and distributed systems because our university got handed down some old like Spark station cluster from somewhere, and that is about like 7 or 8 years old. It's not that old of a story. And the Ada is more recent than that. So these things happen, especially in pockets of schools. It's not every school, but I would certainly say that the latest advances that are going into things like Kubernetes and are going into the tooling and infrastructure and frameworks that we use are often not reflected very well in what's actually being taught. And I think that's a real problem. And so the goal of Linux Foundation is they've started new programs to try to make academic education more relevant, to try to do a little bit of a nudge to say, if you want to teach about things that are relevant to software supply chain security, here are things we think are important that should be covered. Here are types of hands-on exercises and so on you should be doing. If you're teaching about cloud, here are the types of things that we think are important and relevant to this. And this has been done in coordination with also like professors and educational experts who actually work and teach and do these things. This isn't just the Linux Foundation coming up with its wish list of, hey, use all Linux Foundation products. This is like professors looking holistically at the space and working with the LF to do it. And so there are actually 2 different types of certifications that your university or institution could potentially go and get today. There's the first 2 that the Linux Foundation has launched. One is out of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and this focuses on like cloud native fundamentals and how different aspects of clouds work, and basically are you explaining things like containerization and service meshes and all this other type of stuff to your students. And the second one is focused, it's out of the OpenSSF, and it's focused on software supply chain security and like secure practices, so evaluation of code, things like setting like secure Git policies and secure ways of doing software updates or managing software over its life cycle, dealing with vulnerabilities. All of these types of topics are discussed and covered in detail there. And so if you want to fill out an application for this, I say this because I know I filled one of these out. You provide a bunch of basic information about your school, which is really easy to find. It's name of the school, about how many students you have, which programs this is going over. And then for each of the CNCF and the OpenSSF, which by the way, you do those effectively separately, you go and explain how you cover 10 general topic areas. These are like the technical things that should be covered, that the LF and the academic folks who worked with them think should be covered as part of doing providing effective material to students and explaining the types of things that they need to understand to really be able to step out into the world and be ready to do relevant things while also covering important, like, pedagogical points that any computer science or computer science related program should be covering on those. And there's also a requirement to have some hands-on assignments on different topics. You don't have to have hands-on assignment on every topics. I believe both of the programs have a series of 4 areas where we would like you to have it. 2 of the 4 have a hands-on assignment, so the students can get some, can actually try things. And then you just get a letter from your dean, your department head, whoever is a person at the university who's a reasonable person to sign, just saying like, yep, we know this packet's going in, we think this is good. And a full packet is, I say, on the order of 7 to 10 pages. The one that I submitted was just over 7 pages. I could imagine that somebody would make a shorter one. I could also imagine you would put more detail in. And we were actually the first school to pass. Thank you, Crobe. We were the first school to pass the evaluation process. So we have the OpenSSF. At least we have passed through the review process. They need to make an announcement and do some other things, but we have the OpenSSF approval, which was once again not that onerous, not that difficult for us to do. Would encourage others that are potentially interested to take a look. So I figured I'd also mention some frequently asked questions, because I think that this might be the kinds of things that people would wonder about. So the answer is, first of all, do you just get told like pass, fail? And the answer is no. You actually get a lot of really detailed feedback. And this isn't meant to be something where it's like, you submit a paper to a conference and it's just like you make it or you don't. It's much closer to what you'd expect from a journal that's very interactive, where you give us some things, and then some things will say, yes, you pass, here's some feedback for you. Some things will say, sorry, you're way off. But most things that have some problems would say, well, here's some suggestions for how to get to a better revision of this. Can you take a look at this and integrate these things? And then, like either resubmit your packet for this cycle or wait until next cycle, and we'll look at your packet again later. Do we expect perfection? Absolutely not. This isn't something where you have to hit everything, every point, exactly, completely well and stuff like this. The idea is to, have something that's like kind of sufficiently close to what's happening in practice and so on. And then we can basically go and help people to get further along. And then another thing you might wonder is, like, what do we have to help you meet the standards? And both Dr. David Wheeler, PhD from George Mason, and also myself and also others in the community have made some materials available that you could look at as examples. Of course, you don't have to use anything. You do what you want, but it's a way of enabling you to go and see this is the type of thing that's being looked at. So to conclude, once again, here is the QR code for my slides. If there's anything you want to look up or do anything with, you can scan this, and this will take you to the slide deck, and then you can click on links and stuff like this. But I'd say, the Linux Foundation will help you get accredited. If you're doing the right types of things, it's relatively easy. If you need to maybe make some refinements and stuff, it will also help with this. And I think this is really positive thing, especially, if you want to market this as something for your school, as we have this, we're one of a limited set of universities that is teaching things that are rigorous in this way, that's been validated. And there's 2 different programs available, one for cloud and one for supply chain security. You don't have to do both. You could just do one like we did. At some point, we might go for the cloud certification. I put a link in my slides to the actual program. And also, if you have any questions individually for me, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. So with that, thank you very much. Question? Yeah.
From your perspective, what would the benefits be both a enterprise trying to get talent, but also for students to go through a program that has this accreditation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll repeat it for the recording. So what would the benefits be for like a company that's trying to hire people that have these skills and also students? And really, it's a bit, the companies know they're getting people that have certain baseline abilities. It's often very hard to tell that from a resume. And students get a bit more hands-on and a bit more applied and are working with more relevant things. I know as a professor, it's really hard for me to keep up with what industry needs all the time, especially in spaces like this that are moving so quickly. So this also becomes like a common focal point for, you know, us as academics to not have to keep reinventing everything all the time in a vacuum. We can kind of pull in and learn from each other and share things and circulate as well. So, and do I have time for more questions, or are you going to kick me? It's okay because I think there's a break now. So Lori, if you don't mind, go ahead. Feel free to ask. There's a mic there, or you can shout. Either one is fine.
So you talked about sharing. So is there a mechanism for sharing? Like rather than say, oh, you need an exercise in something, they could say, Justin has something great.
Yeah, so we have a site where the information is, and we also, in addition to this, like when we give feedback, or at least the one person who has so far received meaningful, well, there's actually two people that have received feedback. In both cases, when the feedback was given, materials were also given as part of that. But we'd be willing to do this in you know, a more structured way. If we get 100 of these applications, there will be a website and there will be more formulaic. But right now, it's been more individualized. So
if you become certified, do you become part of the sharers?
If you like, you're welcome to. We would love to have anybody who's certified provide materials, or even if you're not. If you think you have something that's useful to the community, then definitely, like, we would like to be a conduit to get materials out to more institutions. I know I have a lot of my introductory security materials are used at different institutions. And you know, that sort of happened organically as you make things and people ask you for copies. And we want this to be another way to get new materials out, because wouldn't it be great to hear about the amazing things that are happening with like all that like cross regulation matching, like I forget the name of the framework you have, but it's wonderful. PSCRIM. Well, I would love to, you know, be able to get all that out and not have to make my own slides and butcher parts of it and get little things wrong and so on. So it's just better for us all to share. Yes?
So what kind of practical activities are you implementing in the classroom with your students for part of the courses that are part of this certification?
Right. Okay. So specifically for OpenSSF, the ones that I can remember that I have in my packet deal with things like they have to set up a whole bunch of controls on version control systems and set up build systems with specific controls, and they have to do things like set up a reproducible build and a few other things like this as part of like making software. So they have to go through and they have to do like two-party code review, you know, before things get merged in, and they get a lot of hands-on experience with those types of things as they actually implement a monitor for SigStore is the assignment that I'm using currently in my thing. And so the kind of requirements are things like, you know, you need some hands-on with applying secure software supply chain best practices, and you need some kind of hands-on with, you know, doing secure builds or something like that. I forget what the exact requirements are, but those are the types of things that you would have is, you know, maybe a variant on the kinds of assignments that you would already be doing. Okay, anybody else have any last questions? Are you?
I do a full OpenShift deployment, so they actually have to deploy various pieces inside OpenShift to do a whole data engineering deployment. But I'm more on the development side,
yeah.
not so much on the security side.
So Langdon White at Boston University does a complete like OpenShift cloud deployment thing that is awesome, and we're looking forward to the whole. Yeah.
I should just apply for data science.
Yeah. You should. You should absolutely, everyone should apply. If you're just thinking about it, just start the conversation with us. It took me 2 to 3 hours to put the packet together, but I taught all the classes I needed to pull information from. If there were different faculty who taught different classes, then they would also, you would need to gather some stuff from them. But at least for the OpenSSF packet, since I teach all the software supply chain stuff at NYU, I could put it all together, right? So just it's something to consider. It's not a huge lift. It's not that difficult. Okay, all right. Thank you all very much.